So students, we may resume here the current slide. Okay, we have discussed sexual identity, age. Right now we are discussing the point age in this current slide. So what we are discussing, let me remind you a little bit. Uh, Even the older colleague goes up or discuss on some issues, somehow misses a point. He should not say he should not say goes up, but somehow misses a point while doing something. You let the things slide. Okay, just out of respect, and so is older than me. How it will be very difficult for me to pin a point that this person is wrong, and unless and until whatever this person has done is really very negatively affecting my work, I will not say anything. Okay, so person who is younger than your age, so whether we accept it or not happens in real life, people who are younger in age are accept being treated like according to their age. So you could probably be more blamed with the person who is younger in age, and against this is cultural. In some culture this would be a big deal, but we do perceive people who are older in age to be at different level. We expect different things from them, we treat them slightly differently. Okay, so next point is that family constellation. Family constellation is the another source of difference. Many of us assume that people coming from joint family will be more adaptable, will be more adjusting than people coming from nuclear families. And if the person is a single child, we assume that the person has never learned to share. That is general assumption we have, which is wrong. Many times it is wrong, but we assume that the person who lived in a joint family, who always had people in and out of their house, must be used to sharing a lot more than the person coming from a nuclear family. Okay, and this also includes our notion about single parent families. We have certain opinions. All of us have a certain notions about single parent families. Many of us, while forming these notions, might be taking the struggles or the limitations single parent families would have had, and many of us may not think about those things. But we do have certain notions about the different things, different kinds of family structures a person is coming from, and how that would impact the person's interpersonal behavior at work and in other kinds of relationship. The next thing on the list is socio-economic status. Okay, so we assume that a person who has grown up with a lot of money will not be able to survive in different difficult circumstances. We assume that a person coming from a wealthy family will not be able to deal with limited resources. So we have certain notions and we test these people on these notions. When we interact with them and we form certain opinion, we also assume that a person who is not coming from a wealthy family will not know how to deal with people who are very well off. Many times the notions does exist and we test this. We assume that a person who doesn't belong to a high socio-economic status would probably not know how to deal with a large number of resources when they are presented to this person, which is an incorrect notion. But those are the kind of biases that creep into our behavior when we deal with the people. This is just a common thing. Okay, I must intimate that whatever I told you is not part of how I behave with people. These are just observations have made. I'm a student of human behavior, you may think so. Okay, or you may be also a student of human behavior. You observe human behavior around people you have. So I have made so these are the several observations. Now when you look at this list, socio-economic status can be mean to personal artifact. Socio-economic status can be also linked to maybe linked to maybe appearance, whether you be able to or not, whether you able to go to gym or not. So all these things, socio-economic status also be linked to a person's behavioral style that we have already discussed here, behavioral styles. Okay, so the next thing on the list is educational qualifications or education qualifications or system. Okay, so it could be different educationally in India. Again, it is a popular notion that the state board of school education doesn't provide education of quality as good as the central boards, and that is a popular notion. The IITs are considered to be lead schools in India. IIT, Indian Institute of Technology, provides the best technical education. So someone can say that very confidently that we provide excellent they provide excellent quality of education, and they are constantly striving to improve it. But at the same time, the NITs are also working very hard. But the popular notion is that if you are an IITian, you are put into a separate and different bracket. If you from an NIT, you are not considered that capable by the people who hire you. It is an unfortunate, because people in NIT are also doing excellent work and they are very well known within the country and outside the country. But this has a bearing, the system of education we have been exposed to have a bearing on how people perceive us and our qualification. Okay, so we assume things about people who have had a certain set of experience. Hmm? It is a subconscious, in most cases is subconscious. There is a logic also to it. We feel that the person who has moved out has learnt different things from staying outside his own comfortable zone, has learned a lot about life and about work by interacting with people from different background, and that is the experienced people moves to the table when we interact with them. So this person could be considered more knowledgeable, but but this is things but these things are subconsciously embedded in a thinking process. And these are the things that we assume when we are talking to people. These are the things that we assume when we are dealing with different people, and these assumptions form our intrapersonal context when we are designing our messages. The last thing on this list, at least on this slide, is but definitely on this list, but definitely on the slide, is occupation. Okay, occupation, the teaching, medicine, were considered traditionally, they have been considered to be the noblest of professions, and profession like law was just not traditionally considered to be a very noble profession. But these days it is becoming more and more acceptable. Lawyers are some of the most brilliant people in the country and abroad now, and at least India, that was the popular notion maybe 30 years ago. Similarly, modeling or the career in performing arts maybe a century ago was limited, was not entered into by people from the good respectable family because of the suppose in a environment in a performing art career, because of odd hours these people kept, because of the lack of invasion of privacy. But these days these careers are considered just means the careers in art, the careers in modeling, considered just as respectable as any other career. So the occupation we have gives us a different kind of gives people a different impression about us. Let me take another example. In the performing arts, we assume that the person who is on screen will be physically fit, will take good care of their skin, will take good care of their hair. Women, specifically women who are in the performing arts, will know how to wear makeup. Okay, so they look much more presentable than a professor, because a professor physical appearance is supposed to be tattered jeans traditionally with the khadi bag, and a person in the performing arts spends a lot of time maintaining their physical appearance. And the occupation also has the bearing on how people perceive our level of interaction. A person who is a teacher will be more adept at, we assume that a teacher will be more adept at communication. Okay, so they assume that the teacher will be more comfortable with communicating. Teacher will be better than they say than actor at research at finding out things. A lawyer will be the expert at finding out things. So we have these assumptions. A person in the armed forces or in the paramilitary forces will be, one will be physically fit, and two will be stronger and steadier than a person in sedentary professions like teaching. Okay, we have all these assumptions about people coming from different professions, and these are the assumptions that help us define how the form our message, how we form our messages that we feed to the receptor of the messages. We assume certain things going back to Barlow's SMCR model as the sender of the message. We assume something about the receiver of the message, and then I form my message according to what I perceive about the receiver of my message, and then I package the message in words enveloped in the meaning I attach to my understanding of the receiver of the message and send it across to the receiver of the message. So, and then the receiver of the message interprets these things from his or her own environment, within his or her own environment, based on his or her own environment assumptions about me and my creation of the message, my reasons for making that message. Okay, so it is depend upon the message, how it is interpreted by the receiver also. So let us move on interpersonal international communication. Okay, just one small point here. International communication refers to the nationality, refers to geopolitical boundaries. So international communication refers to communication with people from a different geopolitical background. Okay, so at this point, you let me give you some input on why we study intercultural communication. According to Martin and Nakayama, we study intercultural communication because of the impact of technology on human communication. Technology has made human communication very available to everybody in the rest of the world. So the boundaries are shrunk and technology has brought us all together. Means we may have a wide knowledge, we may have wide communication across the world. So it comes here the necessary or need to study intercultural communication. So there is mobility and migration, there is diversity and social heterogeneity. We are more mobile, we move to different places, we interact with constantly with people from different cultures. There is self-awareness, we see ourselves from the eyes of very difficult people, and those things have bearing on how we interact with our environment. And there is, we have notion about universality and relativity. So what is universal, what is relative, we will discuss these points in the next lecture. So I want you to think about these. Can communication in business setting be anything but intercultural? Okay, so do you think that it is required to study intercultural communication in business world? You may think on it. Okay, again we may have a revision, we may take short revision in next lecture. Till then, thank you, and please, whenever you have doubt, if you feel that it is not grasping, then pause the video and clear your idea. So let us stop here. Thank you, till the next video.